channel and you would be interested in receiving weekly tips on how to stay sober and spiritual, because staying sober isn't enough. We have to stay sober and spiritual in order to live our most authentic life, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. And guys, when you subscribe, remember to please hit the bell next to the subscribe button. That way you will get alerted when new videos are put out, and you can watch those as soon as they are uploaded onto the channel. So if this is your first time here, welcome. This is an amazing community. We have a lot of fun here. I love to post some awesome videos about staying sober and staying spiritual, because that's really what it's all about. Because if you're not spiritual, sobriety really doesn't matter at the end of the day. So without further ado, guys, this is Rehab for the Soul, session number 7. I think so. 7? Yeah, we'll go with 7. Someone will correct me, whatever. But this is an awesome video. I'm really excited about this one. Rehab for the Soul, session number 7. And this is about emotional craving. All right? Emotional craving. So let's get down to it. You guys know how I do it, and you guys know how I roll. Emotional craving. What does that mean to you when you hear emotional craving? All right. So in order to understand this, guys, this emotional craving is really what drives any type of addiction or any type of dysfunctional behavior. Okay. So let's break it down. Let's start at the top, right? As you see here, I have my diagram of what we really look like. Remember, we are spiritual beings. We have a soul. That's the core of us. That's our soul. Surrounding that is our emotions, okay? That's the emotional layer. And then we have the mental layer, which is where the thoughts happen. And we have the physical layer. So I want to really just break a myth today, an understanding that people just can't wrap their minds around. So what I'm going to do for you is I'm going to explain what the emotional craving is. I'm going to tell you the false ways you try to fill it, even when you are quote unquote sober, peeing clean. And then I'm going to also identify a 2-step process as to how you can truly fulfill the emotional craving. Got it? Of course you do, because you're smart, because you're watching this channel. All right. So when people come into rehab, one of the first places they check into, one of the first levels of care, is what we call detox. All right? And that's the main motivator for somebody that's coming into rehab. They want to get detoxed because they are feeling sick AF, right? You guys want to get rid of those withdrawal feelings, especially. You know, here's a side note, guys. If you are using alcohol or benzos, please, 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 please check into a hospital or a rehab or some type of medical facility that can detox you. Do not try to go cold turkey on the couch, because alcohol and benzo withdrawal can be fatal. It affects the entire central nervous system. You guys don't understand that. Never, ever, 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 as a family member, tell an alcoholic to just stop drinking and then help them with that and say, just dry out on my couch for a couple days. Do not do that. You will be at risk of seizure and death. All right. Alcohol and benzo withdrawal are the 2 drug substances that you can die from the withdrawal. The withdrawal can be fatal. Okay. Now, usually when we talk about this, heroin and opiate addicts get all the attention when we're talking about detox and withdrawal symptoms. And the reality of the matter is, you know, alcohol and benzo withdrawal, you will die from. Opiate, heroin withdrawal, you will feel like you're going to die and you'll want to die, but you won't, for the most part, you know. And that's barring if you have any underlying medical conditions. Obviously, there's always a risk. So anytime you want to detox, we do recommend that you check into a medical facility so you can do that. All right, just my little tip of the day for you. I don't want anybody sitting on their couch and having some seizures. So, and make sure, guys, it's a facility that understands how to appropriately detox you. Okay? Because I cannot tell you how many times I've worked at a facility and I was doing group therapy, and in the middle of the whole thing, I have somebody completely fall out into a full-blown seizure onto the floor because they were not appropriately detoxed, especially with alcohol, because alcohol and benzo use, you guys know, goes hand in hand. And when I'm talking benzos, I'm talking the anti-anxiety meds like Xanax, Ativan, things like that. Okay? If you have questions about that, definitely comment below and I can further explain that. But you got it. You heroin and opiate addicts, man, it's not going to be fatal. You're not going to die. You got to just suck it up and do what you got to do, you know? Yeah, it's shitty. But again, the risk for fatality from it is much, much lower in comparison to the alcohol and the benzo. All right, so the first place somebody's going to check in when they go to rehab is going to be detox, because they're going to be feeling bad. How? They're going to be feeling bad physically. That's right, physically. Now remember, guys, we've been talking about this, and where does the problem start? Remember, the problem is not drugs and alcohol. The problem is loss of spiritual alignment, and the problem starts here in the soul, where you've lost contact with authentic self, okay? And so you lose contact with authentic self and you start to feel how? You start to feel bad, right? You start to have bad feelings, and then you start to think unhealthy thoughts. And then do you make healthy choices in the physical realm? No, you make poor choices. So again, addiction, when we're talking about this, problem starts from the inside and works its way out. Now, like I'm telling you, the problem needs to be treated from the inside out. Unfortunately, you know, today's world, we want to treat everything from the outside in. And I'm going to show you the problem with that right now, right? So, drugs and alcohol, when people first consume them, they're taking them, and how? You are ingesting something physical into your body. That's something that's tangible, that you can touch it. You are taking it into your body, okay? So, the substance is coming from the outside and it's working its way in, all right? Now, it's going to change how you feel, all right? And if it changes how you feel, it's going to change how you think, and it's going to change your emotional connection, okay? Because essentially what the drugs and alcohol are going to do is they're going to numb all this out, all right? So when somebody checks into rehab, the detox is a level of care. It's the first place they usually go, and that, by the way, is not treatment. That is a medical level of care. That's all detox is. It is not treatment. If they're in there doing things with you like changing your thoughts and trying to get you to do more deep thinking and some counseling, it's really not appropriate. And they just want to do groups so they can bill most of the time, which is unethical. But if you can find something that isn't unethical in the structured way of treatment today, good luck with that. And it's so unethical to do that because physically and mentally, you are not anywhere close to being able to understand cognitively any sort of relapse prevention or whatever they're trying to teach you. Am I saying it's wrong? No, but it ain't right either. You take that how you want. So detox, all detox is a medical state, a medical unit to make sure that drugs and alcohol leave your body safely. That's it. Okay? Here's the kicker though, guys. It takes a matter of 3 days for a substance to leave the body. So if you can stop using a substance for 3 days, your body is going to readjust, it's going to recalibrate, as we say, to its natural state of alignment physically. And this is very, very, very important, okay? Yes, you have your fat-soluble drugs and your water-soluble drugs, and people are going to say, well, Miss April, weed stays in your system for 30 days. Actually, that's not actually true if you knew anything about the urinalysis and what they're actually measuring for. They're measuring for the biochemicals that your body produces to break down the substance, okay? But, the effects, 3 days, 3 days, okay? So here's the question. After 3 days, if the drugs are out of your body, why are you still having what we call cravings? Okay, people will say they have cravings for indefinite time for, Cravings can, go anywhere from 6 months to 2 years, and intermittently anytime after that. But what you're not understanding is, here's where what we really need to, this is it right here, the key. Once those 3 days are up, you are no longer craving the drugs and alcohol. It is not a physical craving you're having. I repeat, it is not a physical craving you are having. What you are having is you are returning back to the emotional craving that you had at the beginning before you picked up drugs and alcohol in an attempt to satisfy the emotional craving. Okay? The emotional craving. That's it, emotional craving, right up there on the board. So that's only after 3 days. If you could stop using that, that gets out of your system. And then if you can make the shift to say, well, what am I craving emotionally? All right? And when we're craving something emotionally, this is, most people, you got to be tapped in, turned on, tuned in to understand that, what that craving is. So most people won't be able to per se identify what they're craving emotionally. What you are going to notice is you feel this void. And you guys know what I'm talking about. I don't care if you've been sober for 6 years or 60 days or 60 whatevers. It's that void. Okay? And it is that void of that emptiness in the pit of your stomach that maybe just grips you in the middle of the night, you can't sleep, or maybe it just hits you out of nowhere and you just do things to continuously distract yourself from it. But you know what I'm talking about. It's that void. It was there before you started using, and it's going to be there after you started using, because drugs and alcohol aren't the problem. They are a mere temporary solution at a temporary fix at a temporary solution. I know that didn't make sense, but you guys get this. I mean, you got that. You get it, right? Yeah. And the problem with drugs and alcohol isn't that they don't work, it's that they do work, and it's that they work hard and they work fast. So they won't fill the void, they'll just make you forget that you have it for a little bit. That's all. They work hard, they work fast, but they don't last. They don't last. And there's nothing wrong with having that void. Every human being has that void. Every human being has that emotional void. Okay? But not every human being picks up drugs and alcohol to fill it. And not every human being knows how to fill it either. And so we have to stop fucking around with this shit where we want to give addicts and alcoholics, I don't even like that label because it's just so inaccurate. Okay? We got to stop giving addicts and alcoholics a bad fucking rap. The problem with drugs and alcohol, the biggest problem with them is the illegality of it. Okay, if we legalized these substances, we would have no more problems with it. But I'm probably living on a planet on my own on that one. If you guys agree, definitely drop a comment on the video and let's get a good dialogue going about that. Not one of legalization for your physical selfish desires, but one where we're talking about the illegality is causing bigger problems than the actual substances are causing. Okay? So, drugs and alcohol don't work. You've detoxed. You are back at it now. You're sober, meaning you're peeing in a cup. But now you have to get, this is the step everybody misses because nobody teaches this in rehab. You have to get emotionally sober now. You have to get emotionally sober. And what happens 8 out of 10 times when people come into rehab, they stop using drugs and alcohol, the emotional void comes back up, and the first thing they want to reach to fill it is, drum roll please, relationships and sex. Relationships and sex. Okay? And it doesn't work. Doesn't work. Guys, if I had $1 for every time I found some love letter exchange in rehab facilities and these rehab romances, well, I mean, I would still be here in front of you doing this. I would just have a lot more money. And why doesn't it work when you're reaching for relationships and sex to fill the void? You're still looking outside of self. Okay? You're still looking outside of self. So, quick clarification. What is the emotional void? It's what you're not filling emotionally, what you're craving emotionally. All right. Ways you go about trying to fill it that are still unhealthy, that don't include drugs and alcohol, or relationships, sex, gambling's a big one, money. Oh, y'all, what you want to do, you want to get out of rehab and get that job and get that fast money. You want to buy that nice car. You want to get those clothes. You want to get that crispy KFC fade at the shop. I know what's up because I see you out there. And you want to polish the outside and make it look really good. And meanwhile, on the inside, you're still dying. You're dying, bro. And you know it and I know it. So, because you're feeling the emotional craving come back up. Okay? And it's only something that can be fixed from the inside out, because this is the original problem to begin with. All right? So that's your definition of the emotional craving. That's understanding it. I just told you some of the false ways you try to continue to fill it once you get sober. Also, overworking yourself is another big one. You guys like to run out and get these jobs that are really hard and laborious, labor intense. Like roofing and shit like that, where you get that fast money and you're working 23 out of 24 hours a day only to distract yourself from the emotional void. Okay, there is such a thing as being a workaholic. Yeah, how about that? So this is where a lot of the processing addictions come into play, with the gambling, overeating, food, eating disorders. This can come into play where you start using food as the drug of choice to fill the void. So you're just not using a substance that's per se illegal, but you start to turn to these processing addictions that will also numb you out and void you out. And one is not better than the other. There's one that's more socially acceptable, right? It's more socially acceptable to be a sex addict than it is to be a heroin addict, even though you're doing the exact same thing. I mean, it's so crazy how society is viewing all this, and I really hope that I'm breaking this down for you, because I just, enough is enough. It has to stop, okay? So now that you realize that it's not the drugs and alcohol that you are craving anymore, and that you have an emotional craving, you're probably wondering, well, April, what do I do? How do we fix this? Well, it's a two-step process. Number one, guys, you have to ID the emotional craving. Like, what is it that you're craving? Is it love? Is it acceptance? Most likely that's it, Is it feeling worthy? Worthiness, love, acceptance, understanding, feeling adequate. Those are all those things that you're craving emotionally. Unconditional love. And here's the big one. People always think that everyone's really out for like unconditional love is the top of the line. It's really not. It's the feeling of freedom. And I'm going to help you out with what you're craving. When you strip everything away and you boil it down, what you are craving is freedom. And that is the freedom to be you, your authentic self, as you really, really are, in spiritual alignment with your true soul, source, energy, all of that. You're craving that. You want to be you. You're craving the freedom to be you and be accepted exactly as you are in the very moment. And that's it. That's it. That's the emotional craving, okay? Now, so if we identify that, the second piece is then you have to what? If you're craving something, you have to satisfy the craving. Well, Miss April, how do we satisfy an emotional craving? Well, it sure ain't with a damn Snickers bar, I'm going to tell you that much, okay? So if you're craving love, acceptance, freedom, authenticity, unconditional love, how is that going to happen? Well, remember, this is at the core. That's where the detachment came from. You have to tap back into you. And only you can fill the craving. Nothing outside of you or anyone else outside of you can fill the craving. That means material things won't fill it. You can have all the money in the world. Guys, I've worked with celebrities. I've worked with famous musicians, artists, things like that. People with money. Okay, big money. And I can tell you, this is why it always comes back to this, and they're still miserable. You think people have it all put together on the outside, and you see all these famous people committing suicide or dying of drug overdoses, especially the ones that are sober. I don't want to name any names because I don't exactly know the exact details, so I don't want to say anything, but you can think of some in your mind, you know, some that are sober and then turn around and commit suicide, and nobody understands it because it was like they're at the top of their game. Why would they do that? Well, it's because they haven't obtained emotional sobriety. And if you want to know what emotional sobriety, you know, the lack of it looks like, it's pissing clean and living dirty. And you guys know what that means. You're out there in front of the podium, you're pissing clean, and then you're screwing 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 girls on a nightly basis. That's living dirty because you're trying to fill the void. Ladies, stop spreading your legs. Men, stop looking for your serenity up a woman's vagina. And whatever, I don't care what your sexual orientation is, doesn't matter here. It's not going to get done that way because you're still looking outside of self. So how do you satisfy the craving? You get back in touch with authentic self. And if you don't know how to do that, please go back to the Rehab for the Soul sessions called Finding Authentic Self, because I broke that down for you. Okay, so go back, watch that video, and that's going to help you satisfy this emotional craving, because once you do that, you're going to get back in tune with soul, source, universe, energy, Buddha, Allah, Tao, God. I don't care what you call it, just find it and be it and know that you are it. And when you understand your worth, you understand your worth. You don't need anybody else to verify it. You don't need someone to co-sign your worth anymore. Because you are worthy, you are love, you are unconditional love, you are universe, you are soul, you are powerful, you are energy, and you are enough. You are enough exactly as you are in this very moment. And that also goes for if you're using drugs and alcohol. So if you're out there right now hearing this and you're not sober, you're still enough. You're enough. Okay? So, what do we do here today, guys? We kept it real simple and we kept it real. Just how I like it. Simple, raw, real. I identified what your emotional craving was. We identified ways you attempt to fill it that are still unhealthy, that don't involve drugs and alcohol. And we identified what you need to do to go about satisfying the emotional craving. It always comes back to the emotional craving. It will never be anything else. It's not about the drugs and alcohol. Drugs and alcohol are not the problem. Get with it. Stop talking about it. Stop marching against heroin. Not the problem. Okay, guys? So that's that. I hope you enjoyed this. And also what I'm going to start doing, and I'm going to start this today in this video, I'm going to be adding a question of the day for you guys to answer in the comment section below of the YouTube channel. So, drum roll. Time for the question of the day today is, what are you craving emotionally? Okay, what are you craving emotionally? Are you craving love? Are you craving acceptance, unconditional love, freedom, joy? What are you craving emotionally? Comment below. Let's start getting some dialogues going on these videos. I know you guys are watching them. So let's start talking about them. Let's start getting that done. All right? All right. And if you have not subscribed to the channel, please do. Rehab for the Soul. And also follow us on Facebook, Recovery Concepts and Consulting.